Villisca, Iowa, population 1,200 in 1912, was the picture of Midwestern tranquility, a farming community where neighbors knew each other by name, church attendance was near universal, and unlocked doors were a matter of trust rather than negligence. Located in the southwestern corner of the state, the town thrived on agriculture and the railroad that cut through its center. Josiah Moore, a 43-year-old respected businessman who operated a successful grain dealership, lived with his family in a 2-story white clapboard house at 508 East 2nd Street, a home they'd purchased just 3 years earlier, filled with the ordinary rhythms of small-town American life. Josiah and his wife Sarah, 39, were pillars of the Presbyterian Church. Their children, Herman, 11, Catherine, 10, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5, attended local schools and played with neighborhood friends. On Sunday, June 9, 1912, the family attended morning services as usual. After church, the Moore children invited their friends Lena and Ina Stillinger, sisters aged 11 and 8, to spend the night. The girls' mother, Mary Stillinger, agreed, watching her daughters walk the short distance to the Moore home, never imagining it would be the last time she saw them alive. Neighbors later recalled seeing Josiah Moore returning home around 9 p.m. after closing his business. The family ate a simple supper. Young Paul reportedly complained of a stomach ache and went to bed early. Around 9:30 p.m., a neighbor named Ross Moore, no relation, passed the house and saw a light in the upstairs window, the last confirmed sighting of the family alive. By 10 p.m., Villisca had settled into its usual Sunday night quiet. Streets empty, windows dark, the only sounds the distant whistle of a passing train and the chirping of crickets in the Iowa heat. What happened between 10 p.m. and dawn remains one of America's most chilling, unsolved mysteries. Monday morning, June 10, passed with unusual silence from the Moore household. When the family failed to appear for morning chores or for the children to walk to school, neighbors grew concerned. Around 7 a.m., a local minister, Reverend J.P. Ricks, went to the house after Josiah failed to open his grain business. Finding the front door unlocked, a normal occurrence in Villisca, he entered calling out greetings. Receiving no answer, he climbed the stairs. What he found defied comprehension. In the master bedroom, Josiah and Sarah Moore lay dead in their bed, their skulls crushed by repeated blows from a blunt instrument. Down the hall, 11-year-old Herman had been killed in his bed. In another room, 10-year-old Catherine and 11-year-old Lena Stillinger shared a bed, both murdered. In the smallest bedroom, 8-year-old Ina Stillinger had crawled into bed with 7-year-old Boyd Moore after being awakened by the violence. Both children were killed together. 5-year-old Paul, who had gone to bed early complaining of illness, was found dead in his bed, the only victim whose face had been covered with the bedsheet, as if the killer had performed a final act of mercy or ritual. 8 bodies, all killed with an axe, all struck multiple times in the head while sleeping. The murder weapon, a double-bit axe belonging to Josiah Moore, was found discarded near the bodies, its blade caked with blood and hair, the handle wiped clean. Most disturbingly, the killer had covered every window in the house with articles of clothing, dresses, coats, aprons, plunging the rooms into an artificial darkness that suggested premeditation and an intimate knowledge of the home's layout. By 8:30 a.m., the town was in chaos. Hundreds of horrified citizens descended on the Moore home before authorities could secure the scene. They trampled through blood-soaked bedrooms, touched evidence, and contaminated what might have been crucial forensic clues. No fingerprints were preserved. The axe handle, wiped clean, was never properly tested. critical evidence vanished into the hands of souvenir hunters. Within hours, the crime scene that might have held answers was destroyed forever. Iowa's governor dispatched the state's best investigators, including renowned detective James Wilkerson from Des Moines. They discovered puzzling details. No signs of forced entry suggested the killer was either let in or had a key. Nothing of value had been stolen. Josiah's wallet containing $40 remained on his dresser. Sarah's jewelry lay untouched. There was no evidence of sexual assault. The killer moved methodically through the house, room by room, victim by victim, with chilling efficiency. Most hauntingly, investigators found that the two youngest Stillinger girls had been covered with a quilt after death, as if tucked in for the night. The investigation quickly fractured along fault lines of suspicion and small-town politics. Within days, multiple suspects emerged. Frank Fernando Jones, a wealthy Villisca businessman and political rival of Josiah Moore, became an early suspect. Josiah had recently testified against Jones in a contentious lawsuit involving the town's waterworks. Jones had motive, but also a seemingly solid alibi. Multiple witnesses placed him at his home several blocks away that night. Yet rumors persisted that Jones had hired someone to commit the murders. William Insane Blackie, a railroad worker with a history of violence, emerged as another suspect. Mansfield had worked as a brakeman on trains passing through Villisca and had allegedly committed similar axe murders in neighboring states, Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, in a pattern investigators later dubbed the work of Billy the Axeman. Witnesses placed Mansfield near Villisca that weekend. He reportedly told a fellow worker he'd fixed a man in Iowa who had crossed him. Yet no physical evidence connected him to the crime scene. Reverend George Kelly, an English-born traveling minister with erratic behavior and possible mental illness, became the most publicly pursued suspect. Kelly had preached at a nearby church days before the murders and was known to have visited Villisca. When arrested in Wyoming months later, he allegedly confessed, though the confession was riddled with inaccuracies about the crime scene. Tried twice in 1917, Kelly was first convicted largely on circumstantial evidence and questionable testimony. But during his retrial, the prosecution's case collapsed. Key witnesses recanted, evidence proved unreliable, and Kelly's bizarre courtroom behavior, alternately confessing and proclaiming innocence, suggested mental instability rather than guilt. The jury acquitted him after deliberating just 2 hours. Kelly died in a mental institution in 1932, his connection to the murders forever ambiguous. Other suspects included a transient farmhand seen lurking near the house, a jealous suitor of Sarah Moore, and even theories of insurance fraud gone horribly wrong. Each lead dissolved under scrutiny. The investigation, hampered by contaminated evidence, conflicting witness accounts, and the limitations of 1912 forensic science, gradually lost momentum. By 1917, after Kelly's acquittal, official efforts largely ceased. The case file gathered dust in Iowa State Archives. 8 people were dead. Their killer walked free. Decades later, true crime researchers began connecting the Villisca murders to a series of similar family annihilations across the American Midwest between 1911 and 1912. In Ardenwald, Oregon, 1911, Ellsworth, Kansas, 1911, Paola, Kansas, 1912, and Monmouth, Illinois, 1912, families were murdered in their beds with axes, windows covered with clothing, no robbery apparent. The killer, dubbed Billy the Axeman by researchers Bill James and Rachel McCarthy James in their 2017 book, The Man from the Train, appeared to target families living near railroad lines, using trains to move between towns undetected. The pattern suggested a transient killer with intimate knowledge of home layouts, possibly working as a carpenter or house painter who gained access to homes under legitimate pretenses before returning to murder entire families. Yet no physical evidence connected him to the crime scene. Villisca never recovered its innocence. Families installed locks on doors for the first time. Parents forbade children from sleeping over at friends' houses. The Moore home stood vacant for years, then passed through multiple owners, each reporting strange occurrences. Disembodied children's laughter, footsteps in empty hallways, the scent of pipe tobacco, Josiah Moore's habit, in rooms where no one smoked. In the 1990s, the house was purchased by Darwin and Martha Lynn, who transformed it into a museum and occasional overnight lodging for paranormal investigators. Visitors continue to report unexplained phenomena, though skeptics attribute these to suggestion and the power of a tragic history. The victims were buried in Villisca's IOOF cemetery in a single plot, 8 headstones arranged in a row, the 2 Stillinger sisters resting beside the Moore children they'd played with just hours before death. Mary Stillinger, mother of the murdered girls, never recovered from the loss. She died in 1936, reportedly still asking why her daughters had been taken. In 2016, more than a century after the murders, Iowa investigators exhumed remains from the IOOF cemetery, hoping modern DNA technology might finally identify the killer. They sought to extract genetic material that might have been transferred during the attacks, skin cells under victims' fingernails, blood spatter containing the killer's DNA. The effort yielded inconclusive results. No match appeared in criminal databases. The identity of the person who covered those windows, who lifted that axe 8 times in the darkness, who walked away into the Iowa dawn, remains unknown. The Villisca axe murders endured not as a sensational curiosity, but as a profound tragedy that exposes the fragility of safety in even the most trusting communities. It represents a perfect storm of investigative failure, contaminated evidence, limited forensic science, small-town politics, and the sheer randomness of violence against sleeping children. Unlike serial killers who crave attention, this murderer left no manifesto, no taunting letters, no clear motive beyond the act itself. The silence surrounding the crime has proven more haunting than any confession could be. Today, the white clapboard house at 508 East 2nd Street still stands. Tourists visit from around the world. School groups learn about early 20th century forensic limitations. True crime authors publish new theories every few years. But the fundamental questions remain unanswered after 112 years. Who entered that unlocked door on a quiet Iowa night? Why did they cover the windows? Why did they kill 8 people, including 4 children under 12, and walk away untouched by justice? The axe that killed them rests in a glass case at the Villisca Historical Society. The house where they died still has bedrooms upstairs, and in the IOOF cemetery, 8 headstones stand in a row beneath Iowa skies, silent witnesses to a night when trust died alongside a family, and a mystery was born that has outlived everyone who lived through it.